Hello and welcome to U.S. Cricket Now, the podcast covering all things Major League Cricket. I'm Peter Della, Penna, and with me again is Aaman Patel.
Yeah, Peter, and coming up on this episode, we take a look at the Unicorns' 32-run victory as they booked their place into the playoffs.
Running catch by the captain, and fittingly, Matt Short finishes off the innings and ensures a place for the San Francisco Unicorns in the playoffs.
And as we reach the halfway point, it's time for us to give some midway grades and see what these teams are doing right and what they still need to fix. But before we get into all of that, don't forget to follow us at US Cricket Now on Instagram, X, and TikTok. You can also watch us on YouTube. Just search US Cricket Now.
Now, I'm on 32-run victory tonight. I spoke too soon on the last edition of U.S. Cricket Now because I said you win the toss, you win the game. The toss is so important in these matches, and that's been torn up to shreds the last couple of days in Grand Prairie. Everybody who's lost the toss and elected to field first has lost. It's the teams who are defending now. Suddenly the script has been flipped in Grand Prairie, and the Unicorns taken 2 of 3. We'll start with tonight's game, 32-run victory over the still winless Seattle Orcas. So we've got the undefeated versus the unable to get a victory in MLC 2025. And the victory tonight for the Unicorns helped clinch a playoff berth. Remarkable. We're only 16 games in of a 30-game regular season. And just past the halfway point, they've already secured a playoff spot. They're 6-0 with 4 matches to go. 32-run win. And this match, I'm on a lot of seesaws. So many momentum shifts. Unicorns managed to come out on the right side of almost every single one of them. And I don't know how you pick a player of the match from tonight, because there's just too many guys who are doing too many good things to really have one player distinguish themselves.
Yeah, I mean, the entire team was brilliant. I think if I had to throw my hat in the ring, I throw it to Matt Short. It's just ridiculous to say this. A 29-ball 52, and then he takes 3 for 12 in 4 overs, and then takes one of the most ridiculous catches I've seen in person to finish the game. He took another really nice one in the match as well. I would have thrown him the cap. But when I look at this Unicorns team, I just think of balance. They just have this knack of having options at every regard. Harashov gives you that extreme pace option. Carmine LaRue does it from the left. Xavier Bartlett gives you an option while he might be expensive. And then one of their biggest options is Hassan Khan, who didn't even bowl today. It was Matt Short who played with the spin. And for me, I thought that's where Seattle actually kind of maybe lost the game, was in their team selection. This is a wicket. You mentioned how it was all about winning the toss, chasing, but we're playing on this wicket a lot. It's used. It's starting to deteriorate. And we saw it a couple of days ago where the Texas Super Kings were able to use Akil Hussain and get the ball to spin a lot with Nur Ahmed as well. Well, now I think we're going to continue to see the spinners play a big role. And for me, if I was Seattle, there's no way I would have dropped Waqar Salamkeel. There's no way I would have dropped Sikandar Raza. And I would have considered bringing in maybe Steven Taylor just purely for his bowling. I thought having just the one spinner to go to in Harmeet Singh and not using a Sujat Nayak and his spin bowling option probably hurt them a lot tonight.
Well, there's the old Yogi Berra saying, when you come to a fork in the road, take it, and they're taking it in the wrong direction. I'm on the Seattle Orcas. They can't seem to do anything right. You talked about it again, team selection. There's just so many things that they haven't gotten right, and they just seem to me to lack a sense of urgency. Matt Short takes those 2 wickets in the 8th over. He gets David Warner out on a reverse sweep that was given not out initially and then overturned on DRS, and then Kyle Mayers with an arm ball. That capped a sequence where they lost 3 wickets in the space of 8 balls. They were 66 for none. Looked like they were going to cruise the chase with Shahin Jahangir at the top. Romario Shepherd gets him out. And then Matthew Short gets 2 wickets in the over. And then from then on, the Orcas, on paper, were still in a very decent position. But that partnership that followed with Shimon Hetmeyer and Sujat Nayak, 73 for 4, you're chasing a target of 177. Still, all things considered, not that dire. And yet, there just seemed to be no sense of urgency, no momentum going for the Orcas. And in spite of the setbacks, they were still in a decent position, yet they just seemed like they were sleepwalking, in a sense, through the last 12 overs of the chase until the game was gone.
And it's surprising to say that for a team who hasn't won a game in 10 attempts at one. They're 0-10 going back to last season. Their last win was against LAKR on July 9th of 2024. This team needs to figure it out fast, and it feels as if David Warner is going to have to come into form. Heinrich Klaassen is going to have to score some runs because even with the 176, was probably 20 more runs than they should have given up. Should have probably had the Unicorns near 150. That is a more than achievable score. And they just dug themselves into a hole. So if I'm the Orcas, I got to go back to that drawing board, and you have to say we cannot drop an 11th. We can't have the dreaded season, the Detroit Lions in 08, where you go 0-16 and you go 0-15 here in your last 15 outings and go 0-10 on the year. That can't happen if you're the Orcas.
We'll go on to the Unicorns' first win to wrap up kind of the Unicorns discussion. On Monday, they beat MI New York by 47 runs. And again, the depth, you talk about it, Aaman. Hassan Khan didn't bowl tonight, didn't really have any impact with the bat tonight, scored 1 off 4, given LBW to Harmeet Singh. But you go back to Monday, 31 off 9 balls. Extraordinary performance coming in to put a real exclamation point on the innings for them against MI New York in a massive total of 246 for 4. But you look at Jake Fraser McGurk, 30 out tonight, scored 64 off 26 in that game on Monday night, 1.476 is Sanjay Krishnamurti, 27 out off 16 balls, 2 sixes. Matthew Short, player of the match in that game, 250s this week, 91 off 43 balls in that game, half century tonight. Everywhere you look in this lineup, there's just nowhere to hide. I mean, Liam Plunkett took a wicket and then is rested or rotation tonight that doesn't even take the field. They've just got so many options. Corey Anderson, we talked about in the last episode, he's out for the season, the torn oblique muscle. And yet, no matter what happens, their injuries haven't really caused any disruption. And in a way, you could argue Corey Anderson's injury might have helped them because Matthew Short's come into the captaincy and he's just exploded onto the scene.
Well, it also might make their domestics fit a little bit better, too, with their internationals. It means they can drop Tim Seifert, who performed in Monday's win against MI New York, 26 off 22. They can slide in Jamar Hamilton, so there's your keeper. Fills a domestic spot, and you can bring in Matt Short to go alongside Finn Allen, who missed Monday's game with a little bit of an illness himself. So, again, this team, we all knew it coming into the year, was the deepest team both internationally and domestically. Felt like the best team on paper. And the way they're shaping up, they're going to be playing in that grand final, Pedro.
Now, who will they be playing against? One of the teams that still in playoff contention, MI New York. Penna Patel continues to have an amazing season. He's second in the league in runs with 267 behind only Finn Allen. 119-run partnership. Once that partnership comes to an end, we talk about the depth that the Unicorns have, the lack of depth, very quickly exposed for MI New York.
I don't think there's a huge lack of depth, rather. I think there's more so the fact that Nicholas Puttern is out of form. He hasn't been amongst the runs. This is a team that should be winning, and for me, it comes down to their captain just not being in the greatest of nick. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they'll be in that 4th position, just given the form of the other 2 sides below them. For them, their success in the playoffs are going to be hinged upon Nicholas Puttern finding a way to score some more runs. If he continues to be 15 off 17 and scratch his way to just about a run a ball, they're going to be bounced very quickly.
I think another issue, too, is the absence of Rashid Khan. His absence, not able to join the team for this tournament, that's been a massive blow for them. And you look at things like team balance and composition, and when a big star like that goes missing, and who's going to replace them and how it affects the overall team balance. And it's been a problem for MI New York without Rashid Khan. And then you look at TSK, one player makes a huge difference. They bring in Akil Hossein, and the things that happened as a consequence of him being in the lineup, it wasn't just the fact that he took 2 for 10, bowling 3 overs in the power play in their 52-run win over the Knight Riders. It was the fact that you can shuffle around some of the other options. It meant that Noor Ahmad, who had been struggling before then in Texas, suddenly now he doesn't have to bowl power play overs. Suddenly he can take on players in the middle order and bowl in a situation where he's much more comfortable. And magically what happens? He's got 2 for 27 in that victory. So all these things with team balance make such a huge difference.
Yeah, and again, they have so many great domestic options to turn to. They've been looking at Smith Patel to open the batting. I think you can even make a case that Josh Trump could get a look there and keep wicket for them after having a brilliant 50 to close off 2024. Did nothing wrong, lost a spot on the team. Maybe he gets a slot in. Saiteja Mukamala has been scoring consistent 30s. They only had a 9 off 7 against LAKR, but you trust him with the bat. And again, this was a game for Shubham Ranjani that was really a make or break game. And you had wickets tumble very quickly thanks to Shadley Venchkovic getting Faf, getting Sai, getting Marcus Stoinis for that first ball duck. Ranjani needed to score. It wasn't just, oh, he scored, great, it adds on to whatever Faf did. He had to score to put on a total. And that 70 from 45 might have just sealed his spot in that team to go alongside of Calvin Savage, who had already done it earlier in the year. And then I think for them, Donovan Ferreira's fall and flow into form, that's so key. So now you look at that lower middle order where you go Marcus Stoinis, Shubham Ranjani, Donovan Ferreira, Calvin Savage, into Nakil Hussain. That is a very deep batting lineup, and no matter who your bowlers are, you're going to give yourself an opportunity to put up 200 runs.
And on the flip side, Knight Riders, we talked about Nitish Kumar out of form. Is he going to get dropped with Ali Khan coming back into the lineup? Do you swap in a overseas bat with Ali Khan coming in as a domestic bowler? Instead, Cornet Dry makes way. To be fair, it's not just domestic players who've been struggling. Arguably, you can make a bigger case that Knight Riders' failures have been more down to their overseas players. You look at the names in that lineup, Aman, from top to bottom. Alex Hales, Sherfane Rutherford, Robin Powell, Andre Russell, Jason Holder. Some big, big names. And you don't expect teens and 20s from them.
I think there's a case to be made. I think if I'm the LAKR, I'm really considering Alex Hales' position. He comes in and you think he's going to change the fortune for a team who can't bat in the power play, hasn't scored many runs there. He's going to be all the difference. Maybe he isn't. And maybe it is a spice man that you turn to. Maybe you go to an Andre Fletcher and say, all right, he's the guy that we're going to try up top the order. I think there needs to be some reshuffling done. I actually really do enjoy the fact that Rutherford, Powell, Russell, Holder, and Narayan can all be there in the middle, but I just think you need to shake things up.
Now let's take a look at the table. After 16 games, Unicorns, as we mentioned earlier, they've clinched a playoff spot. First team to do so in MLC 2025. They are 6-0, undefeated, 12 points at the top of the table, 4 points clear of Texas Super Kings, who won on Tuesday night, and they are on 4 wins, 8 points after 6 matches. Washington Freedom also on 8 points, but they have a game in hand against the Super Kings. MI New York. Now, as you said, I'm on tale of two halves of the table. Seattle Orcas are winless. They've played 5, lost 5, and yet they're only 1 game out of a playoff berth because MI New York and LA Knight Riders both only have 1 win each. MI New York technically in 4th place on net run rate. LA Knight Riders in 5th place with a far worse net run rate. Both teams on 2 points, and the Orcas, in spite of losing tonight. Heinrich Clausen at the post-match presentation was quite optimistic about the team's chances of making the playoffs, Aman.
Yeah, it's you're never out of it till you're out of it, which is the kind of attitude you want from your captain, but it is going to take, the rest of their season, and they're going to have to win every single game from here on out, which isn't going to be an easy feat, especially with the remaining schedule, still having to see a lot of these teams again. I think that's, you look at San Francisco, you look at Texas, you look at Washington, it would take some miracle for all 3 of them not to be in the playoffs, right? And so now you have 3 teams competing for 1 spot. And, for the good thing for Seattle is that both MI New York and LAKR only have the 1 win playing the same number of games. So they're not out of it yet, but, the bottom 3 are competing for that number 4 position. As we near the halfway stage of the tournament, let's school report card each team's tournament so far. So we'll go from A to D. We'll be nice. No Fs here. We're only giving out Ds. There's always room for improvement. And what they need to do to improve and continue to do. So I'll give you the easy one first. How about San Francisco? What's your grade there?
I'm heartbroken here. Not allowed to give an F for any of the teams. No. That's my specialty. I love giving Fs.
We're the Mr. Feeneys of the world, all right? We're giving out good. We're helping these guys. We're not looking to diminish them.
you can't give anything but an A to the Unicorns. I'd actually give them an A plus because again, they've had so many players across the board. Where's the weak link? You can't find one. Corey Anderson goes down. Matt Short steps into the captaincy. You have Finn Allen misses a game with illness, and they still post the highest total of the season in Texas anyway. Jake Fraser McGurk, very quietly, if that's possible, scoring 230 runs, one of the top scorers in the league, averaging 38 with 2 half centuries. You look at the bowling side, Harris Ralph, the leading wicket taker in the competition, 16 wickets at an average of 13.18. Romario Shepherd, who's only played a couple games, but 4 wickets, player of the match performance tonight, 11.50 average for his 4 wickets. You look at Hassan Khan, didn't even need to bowl tonight, and he was the domestic player of the year last year, the Bar King Award winner. Everything they've done, whether it's the domestic options, the overseas options, injury replacements, has been remarkable, and it would take something extraordinary. It would take an awful lot more injuries or something else catastrophic for the Unicorns to not make the final, Aman.
Texas Super Kings, because you said everything that needed to be said about the Unicorns. And, you know, for the Super Kings, I'm going to give them a B+. I think that they've answered all the right questions, that you've seen that they can win in multiple ways. The one thing that worries me is that their 2 losses, it's one against the San Francisco Unicorns and one against the Washington Freedom. So those are the 2 teams that you're going to compete with, that you're looking to overtake. So how do you compete against those top dogs? For me, that's the only reason I would knock them down a letter grade.
Washington Freedom. Again, a team that has pretty good depth, but unlike the Unicorns, there is a case for a clear-cut MVP in this league because he's done the bulk of the work. Mitchell Owen, 245 runs at an average of 49 and 9 wickets at an average of 15.22. He's been a standout performer. But the question mark for the Freedom, if he's not performing, will they be able to keep winning games? So for me, the Freedom, it's that lack of consistent contributions from elsewhere. I'd give them a B grade at the moment, especially coming off a championship season. They haven't been quite as sharp as the Unicorns, and I still think there's some holes that leave some question marks in terms of how they're going to perform over the course of the rest of this season.
Moving to MI New York, I'm going to give them a C-. And the reason I give them the C is because I actually do really like Monang Patel's form. I think he's been brilliant. And I think Sonny Patel has come up the ranks. I thought I didn't know what to expect from him this year, but I thought he's been bowling much better than he typically has, or I thought he would. And then Nash Kenjige, I think, is a big plus for them. The problem for me, while Quinton de Kock has found form, Nicholas Budon still hasn't. And I think their pace bowling still leaves something to be asked. Navino Huck hasn't been truly exceptional as we would have expected him to be, and Trenton Bolt hasn't delivered wickets in a consistent manner, oftentimes only getting 1 over in the power play. I just still have plenty of questions on that team. But domestically, I've liked what they're going with.
The thing about MI New York as well, too, I would not give them a lower grade than what you've given them, is the fact that they've had player availability issues. We mentioned Rashid Khan having to withdraw at the last moment, and also injury issues. Nash Kenjige only coming back to play his first match this week. When they're fully healthy and when they put their best 11 on the field, I think that will be a much truer indication of how competitive they're going to be across the rest of the season. And to this point, we really haven't seen them field their best 11. So when they do put that on the field, I think that will be a much bigger indication of what they're capable of. LA Knight Riders, I've got to give them a D because we've talked about some of the issues they've got in terms of their squad selection, their team balance. A contributing factor to getting a D grade is their approach before the season started. Going back to Aditya Ganesh. This is beating a dead horse, for people who've been following U.S. cricket now, but their draft strategy, you've burned a first-round pick in the domestic draft on a guy who has never taken the field. How does it happen, Aman?
Yeah, it's perplexing, isn't it? And again, could have let him go, picked up 75 more K to work with in the draft, and didn't. Elected to keep everyone on, basically, and bring Karthik Gattapalli on. Maybe he gets into a game, maybe he doesn't. With the spin options they have internationally, doesn't feel like he is going to get a game. Umlok Chand has been the real bright spot. Shailesh Venchkalkar has been good at points, so has Ali Khan. But again, like you said, I think a D is absolutely apt for this team. They haven't found real ways to win or any real keys to success. They've had their moments, little flashes, but nothing to write home about. And for the Orcas, at the bottom of the table, it's going to have to be a D there. They're on the verge of being out of playoff contention very early in the year. They, really went with a whole fresh new domestic group, even international group. They cleaned house. They only kept 2 international players from last season, only kept, the 4, I think, domestic players. They tried taking, bits and pieces from here and there. They went Stephen Taylor. They went to Shahan Jahangir. They went to Sujit Naik. They still haven't played Ayan Sayorli Sheikh. I think they're running out of options, and I'm just not sure that they've found any of the right ones.
And I wish I had a teacher as generous as you during my sophomore year of high school, because I failed sophomore year geometry. I had to go to summer school. I did not have a benevolent teacher who looked kindly on me and give me a D and allowed me to just squeak through. Unfortunately for the Orcas, we talked about this at the start of the season. We agreed with the decisions that were made by MI New York to not retain some of the players, among them Stephen Taylor, who, in spite of a very excellent and prolific USA national team career, has tailed off in recent times. He's no longer in the USA national team setup. He's been left out because the competition of guys like, whether it's Milan Kumar in a like-for-like role, somebody who can hit the ball hard and bowls off spin. You look at Andres House at the top of the order, Simon Kamala, who stepped up for USA and is now doing really good things for the Super Kings. Stephen Taylor was not retained after being a first-round draft pick in MLC 2023 for MI New York. He hasn't really done anything of note in the 2 games he's played for Seattle Orcas this year. Aaron Jones, another player who everybody will remember him forever and ever for his 90 off 44 balls in the opening night of the World Cup against Canada. But he's just not been a consistent performer. Again, somebody who's not currently in the USA team, and there's a reason for that. The consistency isn't there. And he comes in, 4 matches, 83 runs. You have to question, did they pick guys on reputation more than their actual form heading into this tournament? What went into the strategy? I'm curious, because there's a lot of guys who have names, but currently there's not much to show for it. And again, the other glaring point, you look at a team like the Orcas or LA Knight Riders compared to the Unicorns. The Unicorns have 3 guys at the moment who have 200-plus runs. Neither the Knight Riders or the Orcas have a single player over 200 runs. I don't even think they have a player over 150 runs. I'm looking at the Orca stats right now. The best is Kyle Mayers with 129 runs. They haven't had match-winning performances, and forget about match-winning performances, they haven't had any consistency anywhere. Orcas, 1 half century from Kyle Mayers. That's not good enough if you're going to try and win games in this league. And then you look at the bowling side. Leading wicket taker, Harmeet Singh, 7 wickets. Next best for the Orcas. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bowlers with 3 wickets. Aaman, that's not good enough.
No, it's shocking. I read, for the Knight Riders that Alex Hales and Shane Rutherford have combined for 70 runs on the year. Again, it just speaks to the troubles that these 2 teams are going with, and I just don't know what the combinations are really for either of these teams to get onto the right foot. But they've got to figure it out quick, and I think have to establish an identity. Each of the top 4 teams have at least established an identity. Whether it's worked or not, it's different. But all of them have an identity. But I don't think Seattle nor LAKR have a true identity up their sleeve.
Now, question time. We have a question sent in from Austin. With the end of the GT20, should serious consideration be given to the ground at Brampton near Toronto, and could a Canadian team be a viable option?
Yeah, I've never been up to the ground at Brampton, but I do think a Canadian team is a great option for the league, and I do hope MLC expands into Canada at some point. I think it's very much part of the American sports landscape to do that. You look at the NBA and the Toronto Raptors, the MLB, the Toronto Blue Jays, The NHL, obviously, that has more Canadian ties there, Montreal, Vancouver, and company. And we've seen the Canadian players, act as local players, whether it's like minor league cricket, when you had guys like Jeremy Gordon part of teams. I think that would be really amazing. And I'd be all for a Canadian major league team.
My view on this is I'm a proponent of having franchises that have their own grounds. So while my preference would be that MLC would focus on building up the domestic base with franchises 100% based in America, if you've got a ground in Brampton, that to me is a far better option in terms of viability to cultivate a organic home base than the situation that you have with the Orcas, the Knight Riders, MI New York, and Washington Freedom at the moment. I think part of the success, again, for both the Unicorns this season and to a lesser extent Texas Super Kings, they've got home support, genuine home support. I mean, the turnouts at Oakland Coliseum were incredible, and that to me just highlights the need for the rest of the franchises to get the accelerator going in terms of cultivating their home ground, breaking ground, getting something built. And if Brampton already has something functional, which they do, then by all means, if one of the two expansion franchises that's going to be starting up play in a few years in MLC when it expands to 8 teams, Toronto has been discussed, and I don't see why you would turn away from Brampton if they've got a ground when potentially other cities don't. You got to go with a venue that is up and ready to go. So thanks for that question, Austin. And we want to hear from more of you at US Cricket Now. Email us, uscricketnow@gmail.com. You can follow us on US Cricket Now on YouTube, Instagram, X, and TikTok. Just search US Cricket Now.
Yeah, and don't forget to subscribe as well. Follow us and rate us on Apple and Spotify. And if you want to get in touch, drop us an email at uscricketnow@gmail.com.
US Cricket Now is a Viral Tribe Entertainment and Square Cut production. We'll catch you tomorrow for a very special episode as we sit down with 2019 World Cup winner and former LA Knight Rider, Jason Roy. So be sure to tune in to that exclusive interview we've got on US Cricket Now with one of the most thrilling opening bats going around the world on the franchise circuit. But until then, that's it for this episode. See you next time on US Cricket Now.